I am here today to talk to you about the prosecutor's office and location. I know we've brought this up in the past about moving things around, and I kind of took it upon myself to explore some of those options. It's difficult to manage an office and be in court all the time. It makes it 10 times more difficult when half of my office is on the first floor, half of my office is on the second floor. It just makes it tough. So I'd really like to get us all under one roof. And when I say us, I mean my whole office under one roof. And so I had a contractor come in, well actually, had a contractor come in and look at the museum because it just kind of open space. And then Steve Mullins and I, we kind of put together a plan of what we would like it to look like. The other half of this is that the city has been generous enough to give us the second floor of the city building for the Abby Libby investigation. They give us a whole room, we have it under lock and key, and that is just a gentleman's agreement that they've given us.
And he contacted me after the newspaper said we're good to go. So.
And that's beautiful, but that also could end at any minute.
Right.
And you know, I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm always thinking about 2 steps ahead. And so it would also be nice to have that investigation under my roof. One, to manage the evidence that's there, to have that under secure lock and key, which is under lock and key there, but it sure would be nice to have it all under one roof. So I kind of looked at the museum and just dead space, like to use it for some benefit. And so Steve Mullins and I kind of drew up some plans of what we would like. But the bathroom is not a necessity. Everything else, I think, is a necessity. We'd have a lobby, we'd have the 4D office, which is child support, part of the prosecutor's office, one for Marie and then one for the attorney there. We would have our room for the investigator and the secretaries. We'd have a conference room, which would be the Abby and Libby investigation room. We would have 2 interview rooms, which would assist us in, when we resolve cases, a lot of the drug cases, we ask for a cleanup statement, right? Who else you've been talking to, who else you've been dealing with, those kind of things. Those things gotta be taped, right? And so it'd be nice to have 2 interview rooms. Right now, we're using the interview room at the city. Again, they're gracious enough to let us use that, but they don't have to. And then, of course, myself, chief deputy. And so this will fit in the space down there. Now, cost is probably the big question, and I don't know, right? We can't, the intention is not to build walls to the ceiling because we don't want to mess with the architectural integrity of the museum. It has historical value, we don't want to do that. So we have to put, you can imagine, a roof on these things because at least my office and the chief deputies has to be somewhat confidential, plus the 2 interview rooms. So we would have roofs, if you will, on those portions. And so I have no idea what the costs are going to be. I'm still assessing that, but this is the tentative plan.
Nick, you use, this is just for my own information, you spoke at several times today about Abby Libby, about the 4 little girls' floors.
That too. That is ongoing. That is with the state police, and so they have that investigation stuff in their headquarters. And so I'm not discounting that investigation. We just don't have to house the evidence for that because state police is taking that over. They're housing the evidence. And so that investigation is no less important. It's just we don't have the evidence problem with that investigation. The state police has that. So we have the evidence problem with Abby and Libby because it's still a Carroll County Sheriff's Department investigation. So, and there are boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of evidence with that, as you guys can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
You can probably fill that room up over there.
absolutely.
Is it have a store here?
That's at the city building right now. This is kind of getting down to the weeds. We're moving in electronically because we think that's better use of space and everything. But yes, right now it's at the city building. So
this is impressive.
well, Steve is kind of the architect behind this. I kind of told him what I wanted, he set it up, and he has the program, so he's been a huge help. But let me give you some estimates and let's see where we're at. I don't know if we're at 10,000, I don't know if we're at 90,000, I just don't know.
Well, we have, there's 100,000 back for The acoustics are terrible, which you would
Oh, it's horrible.
a lot of this.
When we had the press conference, it's just horrible.
Terrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be using it for that purpose, right? We would just,
Right.
bad acoustics are good for us, right? We don't want sound to travel when we're talking about stuff, and so that is a plus for us. And so, but yeah, it is horrible. I mean, it's horrible. So.
Thank you. Now, you said that you wanted to get us the numbers on it?
Give us some numbers.
I'm working on that. I've had one person come look at it. It's difficult to get people in here right now with the situation we're in. Okay, all right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. What we'd like to do is transfer monies to from that line item to where we need it. Witness fees and transcripts, we're having we're gonna have a lot more trials this year. Part of it's because of COVID backup. Part of it is just because a lot of people aren't pleading guilty like they used to. And so with that comes more depositions, transcripts, preparation for trial. And so we need additional fees there and witness fees to get witnesses to come and testify at trial. The next one is in fuel and maintenance for Steve's vehicle. $500 transfer for that. So those are the 5 transfers we'd like to use from the clerical assistant line item over to those various line items. Oh, right. My chief deputy reminded me, we don't want those to come effective until June 28th of 21. That pay cycle.
I have one question for you, Nick.
Sure.
Why today? Or why now, not the budget cycle?
Well, they approved it for Carroll Superior Circuit, so I figured why not now? You did it from the middle for them, so I assume now is just a good time as any.
We did it for them because we've been trying to get it done for 2.5 years. So that's why we approached it on the mid-year cycle, because we just had to make a big swing, and there's material changes to everything.
You've been trying to get it done for
2.5 years.
Okay. To my knowledge, is the first they had asked for the pay increase.
We don't know yet. Well, they completely changed
They did.
their whole thing, and we've been trying to get that done for 2.5 years.
I guess if that's the mentality, I mean, I've been trying to get pay increases for my people for that long too, for as long as I've been here. And so, again, I don't understand why the difference in pay is there anyways. They do the same jobs. Arguably, we do more than they do, because like I said, the hopper gets filled in our office, and not everything that comes in our office gets sent up to Circuit Superior Court, because some reports, not every report has a crime listed. Sometimes it's an informational report. Sometimes it doesn't meet the elements of a crime. And so arguably, well, not arguably, we have more police reports that come into our office than that get sent up to Carroll Superior Court. And so I don't understand why the pays aren't the same anyways. It's the same, they're doing the same things. I don't like doing it, so I'll let him chime in.
I'm not sure that he's qualified.
So go ahead, Shane. Mr. President, Mr. Blue.
Courthouse to make the same as a part-timer.
She has the most experience. She's got
That
30
has
years of
nothing to do with it. Because
Well, it does to us,
Well,
because
I
she
know
knows,
that,
she
and
knows
I-
more about it than the other two people are fairly new. Now Heather worked up in the courts, so she has some experience, but given the
I'm
low
not
pay
trying to
rate,
argue with
we
you.
didn't
I was
have,
just
no, I
trying
know.
to put a point out
No,
there.
that's sure, and I was just
Yeah.
arguing why I wanted it. When I came to the budget, I think we had a meeting after the budget was approved. I had these discussions, hey, there's not enough in office supplies, there's just not enough there's not enough in cell phone. And at that point, I think it was Mr. Blue said, well, just come back and ask when you run out, and we'll discuss it then. I'm trying to supplement stuff with diversion where I can, but we're out of money there too. So it's just one of those things where we're trying to keep the budget. I think the council's trying to keep the budget as tight as possible, and so we're out. Now again, we're busier than everything that the 4 months we were off during COVID. All that's here now. Right. So we have a trial, and he can testify to this. I have at least no less than 2 jury trials a month until next year. I have 3 in the next 4 weeks. There's 2 people in our office, right, that can do this, so it's, I mean, it's pretty busy right now.
You're not alone.
Yeah, I know, I've talked to,
Yeah,
it's
that way.
it's every prosecutor, every county,
Yeah.
it's tough. Now, we're one of the smallest offices in the state. Most prosecutors have more staff, more deputy attorneys, bigger staff to work with. But it is what it is. It's part of the code. We knew it was coming.
Nick, I'm looking, yeah, I was looking back, every year for like ever, it's been $1,000, and then the prosecutor's taking the rest out of his prosecutor, or the
Version?
diversion.
Mhm.
Why are we not looking there this year?
Well, diversion's not really made for that, one. The second part is, if you also look, you cut my diversion at $29,000, where in the past it's been 60 and above, and so we're out of money in line item for office supplies and diversion. But it's really not what diversion is for. It's not to supplement the county to fund the office. It's not really what it's for. And so we've used it because we don't have any other choice, because we're out of money in office supplies. But
Is there somewhere else in the version?
again, we probably pull it from police, there are line items, police equipment, it doesn't fit in those line items. So we have to transfer among line items, I suppose. But again, it's not really what the diversion's for. It's not the diversion's not made to supplement the county, so they don't have to fund the office.
That's a much broader discussion. If we could put on the agenda today, the diversion. So we have a motion on the floor. It's always been done that way. I mean, it's been done by you that way since you've been here. Correct.
No, only to supplement when we
Right.
can't
You
get
have to
funding from
spend
the
out.
budget. Right.
You have to
Or
spend out.
funding from the council. We have, yes. Again, it's not really what it's for other things, but, you know, I don't know. It's the county's responsibility to fund the office so we can run the office. And this stuff is just for paper to send out victim notices, pens, just regular office supplies, file folders. It's not for any kind of luxury item. It's just things that we need to run the day-to-day function of the office that we're required to by statute. To send victim notice, to do these things. So that's what the funding's for the additions.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the $2,500 additional on the floor. I mirror Tracy said that. I think for this one, I would prefer to do a transfer because that's what we have traditionally done. I would also encourage the discussion about what the fund is for in future. But I also take exception to what he says. We've cut funding for it. It's just the appropriation of funds. We can always move the funding of those lines.
But you cut the whole diversion, is what I'm saying. You cut the whole budget for the diversion by half.
Cutting the budget doesn't mean that that's all that's appropriate.
That's all I can spend out
we
of for the
just-
year.
Right, but
Right.
we can also do additional transfers. So, I mean, we just match the diversion to the expected revenue.
Kind of,
Well,
because it has a supplement at the beginning of the year. So you match it only for the revenue that's brought in per year, not what's built up in years past to get to start the year.
so if you wanted to spend, and that's how we do every department, every budget. We budget the amount that they bring in. If they have surpluses that are existing in the funds and they want to use those, then we do those by additional. So that's the thought process. So, I apologize. We're back to the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of approving the additional $2,500 for office supplies? Aye. Aye. 3 ayes. Nay. Nay. So motion fails for lack of. Do you have your budget with you? Do you have a line to transfer from you like for us to consider while we're here?
I think it's going to cost greater. I mean, I decided to spend out of the diversion. I'm not going to fund my office for supplies out of the diversion. And so now we come into the problem where how am I going to be in compliance with Indiana code if the county's not willing to fund the office?
So you're unwilling to spend anything on?
I've spent a ton already on office supplies. I'm asking for a bare minimum to get us by for just folders, paper, what the county's required to do. And I don't understand why that's not a reasonable request to get us by. I mean, that's what I don't understand.
So, to get you through today, some of an urgent matter, do you want to play a game of brinksmanship on this, or do you really not want to transfer? Because the motion,
It's all right.
the motion has failed. So I'm
That's
trying
fine. That's fine. And I guess we'll have to adjust and see what happens next. I don't know. We've got to send out victim notices. We need paper for the copier, and I'm not sure how we're going to address that. So we'll have to go back to my office and figure it out and adjust accordingly. I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm not getting support of the council for the office, but I appreciate it, I guess.
You're not getting support, it's just awareness.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Hume Bridge. Now it's $210,000. Is there a motion?
Motion.
I just texted.
Oh, you did?
I didn't know if you were in court or anything.
That's okay. I told him I had this going on, so.
Okay. Nick, I'd like to say you did a really good job of explaining why you want what you want. Very good.
Well, I'm gonna exchange most of that.
Very good, Nick.
We have too much else to say. I don't want to waste you guys' time, so whatever questions you may have, I'll try to answer them as best I can. There were some changes made by Beth, but I think that's just the way they have to go listed in the budget.
I didn't change any of the figures.
Right, none of the figures, just, right, what line item they're out of or what have you.
So what is kind of like the bigger argument that I normally recall us having about, you think you should be able to spend it, and we say no?
Well, so what I think the big argument for me last year was that the State Board of Accounts said you can't budget any more than $30,000 in that account, because that's all you brought in for the year before. Where my argument was, yes, that's all we brought in the year before, but we started the year with monies in there already. We started the year with, I think, 25,000 in there. So really, if you include what I bring in for the year plus what we had in from the carryover year, it was about 50 or 60,000 that I could have spent. But I was only allotted what we were to bring in for that year. So I think I was only allotted for this year for 29,000, even though we started the year with, I think, 25,000. And so then I brought in, and so we've got 50,000 essentially in there, but we can't spend 20,000 of it.
You can.
We have to ask for an additional, right, sorry, we have to ask for an additional, which was, and it was just kind of a pain to do when we're doing everything else, to advertise, and it took a while, and just have new arrests, new tickets issued, new things issued, and so it's just gonna be a really hectic 2022 year with all those cases going on. We have the first murder trial starting October 18th, and we have 2 more after that. We do use it for when the officers, they want to do training, like we did a training this year. We did a multi-county training for the Reed School, which is a school that teaches officers how to question suspects and witnesses effectively. And stuff like when we have to back up our files, a lot of stuff is electronic now. And so we have to back those up to make sure we don't lose those. And so we pay for that out of there too. So wide category. You gotta pay them for their time, unfortunately, so.
And Nick, I have a question for you.
Sure.
We've talked about this a couple times, but I wanted to get my head wrapped around it a little bit better. In the event, or when the Abby and Libby murder trial starts, you've said previously, I think, $1 million for that trial. Is that accurate?
I can't really, that's just kind of a ballpark, because it depends on what the evidence shows, whether it's gonna be a death penalty case or life without parole case. On death penalty cases, that is the estimate. They're $1 million a trial. They take 2 defense attorneys. On the defense side, they're required to have 2 attorneys. So those are expensive. You can only have attorneys that are death penalty certified. You're gonna be hard pressed to find those around here. You're probably gonna have to go to Annapolis. You're talking Abby and Libby, the amount of the sheer volume of evidence and tips that we've got, the defense attorneys have to go through that, and that's hours and hours and hours and hours of work. I probably will have to ask for to hire additional staff to go through all that stuff as well. Don't know how long the trial is gonna last, don't know how many defendants we're gonna have. There's just so many unknowns, I don't know, but I know that Clinton County, they just filed the death penalty, and they're concerned they're gonna have enough money to pay for that case. And so it's hard for me to say how much it's gonna be because we don't have any arrests yet. But I anticipate it costing a lot of money to try that case.
Is that also the anticipation for the 404?
Yes. Depending on what evidence comes out. Now, I can't tell you that's gonna be a death penalty case or an LWOP case. I don't know that. If, knowingly, intentionally commits murder, premeditated, those are the kind of things to consider whether or not to pass for the death penalty or not. But it also, you may have, say you have 5 defendants, 5 people working in concert together. You got 5 different trials. That's the problem we have now with the murder in Florida that we're currently trying. We've arrested 3 people.
What if a county comes out and they can't afford to put these trials on? What happens?
Well, that's never happened. A county, again, I don't know every trial that's happened in the state of Indiana. To my knowledge, I've never heard a county say you can't prosecute this guy because we don't have the money. So I don't know. They find it somewhere. But they're not cheap. They're tough. I'm not excited about doing 3 trials all on the same thing, but that's part of it. And they're each probably going to last 2 to 3 weeks each trial, which means I'm out of commission in my office for 2 or 3 weeks prior to the trial and then during the trial. And typically if there's a conviction, you can expect an appeal. So right now, 2022 is going to be hectic for us.
And that appeal would cost the same amount as the first trial?
Well, I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
I would just think that there would be less evidence to go through on an appeal.
I don't do appeals, so I'm not real sure. I know they're very.
But
Yeah.
does the appeal come to the county or does it go to the appellate court and then we're out of that?
I think the public defender bill for that comes to the county.
Yeah. Which I assume that $1 million figure that you're talking about is assuming public defenders.
Correct. I think a lot of that money is going to be in attorney's fees to represent the defendant or defendants. And again, maybe that's just kind of a ballpark estimate. I have no idea what the evidence is going to show and what's going to happen.
Yeah, and just for the councils, we have 2 of these things sitting here for the 4 murders in Abby and Libby. So, I don't know what you would quantify that as, like an unfunded liability. If people want to know why we keep healthy balances in our general fund, that's why. Because at any given moment, we could have a $2 million liability become due for those 2 trial bills. That's just my 2 cents. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, and
really good job on this budget.
Plus I have the murder. I don't know, this murder we have in Florida now, this obviously it just happened in June, and now we're coming up with the first one in trial, October 18th, I believe is gonna be the date. I'm unsure what it's gonna cost, so I may be back in front of you asking for an additional for that, because I don't know. We're not asking for life without parole or death penalty on that case, but it's a murder, and there's 3 different defendants, and there's a lot of evidence, obviously, and so that might be a good gauge to see where we're at. So, of course, not as much evidence in this one as Abby Libby. Abby Libby, you got to think let's say we caught him now, you're talking 4 years of evidence, and so just the sheer volume of that it's a bunch.
Well, they were talking about the relocation of the ground this morning, and like 9 file cabinets full.
Right.
Stuff.
Well, you think a defense attorney is going to want to take every lead, every tip, and track that down to try to defend his client to say, okay, it may be this guy or this guy. So basically, a defense attorney is going to reinitiate that investigation from square one and redo it. That's what I would do if I was a defense attorney, right? Because you want to make sure that all the people we discounted aren't the person. And so that's why it's so expensive. Okay, thanks guys, appreciate it.